I call the member for Ryde.
Thank you, Speaker. We recently recognised National Domestic Violence Remembrance Day. Many have rightly demanded less talk and more action from politicians. Yet, for all the devastating news that we have read in recent weeks and months, this is also an important opportunity to reflect. As we discuss solutions to domestic violence, I think of the generations of Australians who were never counted, victims who suffered silently and continue to suffer silently, victims who suffer openly and remain stonewalled by institutions designed to protect them, and perpetrators never held accountable. Sadly, I know for many this happens far too close to home. It's difficult to confront, to acknowledge it could happen to you or be happening in your family. While addressing the issue is multifaceted, there are two critical causes I don't feel we talk about enough. One, DV represents a form of entitlement. People, overwhelmingly men, who feel entitled to control or hurt another person through force or coercion. This entitlement is generations in the making and not something that will just end on its own. And two, there is a lack of accountability among men. Men need to hold other men accountable, and sadly, I don't think this happens anywhere near enough either. I know some people don't like characterising this as a men's issue and prefer using other terms, but that's not my view. The trends and statistics are quite clear. The era of not all men needs to end. The reality is that this is overwhelmingly male violence against women, against children, against families, and against other men. All men are responsible for addressing the scourge of DV, and governments at all levels are too. In the immediate term, I support the bail reforms that have been proposed by the Leader of the Opposition, Mark Speakman, and introduced today by the Manager of Opposition Business, Alistair Henskins, including ensuring that magistrates, not registrars, determine bail for serious DV charges where bail is opposed, expanding the grounds to suspend bail pending review in serious personal violence charges, expanding the use of electronic monitoring devices to those bailed on serious domestic violence charges. These are important and immediate steps that can be taken to address what Ryde Police tell me is a 45% year-on-year increase in DV rates. Longer term, I'm also supportive of calls for a Royal Commission which will offer a degree of gravitas that I don't believe governments have ever afforded to domestic violence. However, this must be coupled with immediate measures that can reduce harm now. While I'm disappointed to see government rule out this step, my hope was that a Royal Commission would recommend practical, evidence-based steps governments can take to elevate education, early intervention and restorative justice long-term in this space. We know help is needed to escape immediate harm, but if wraparound support like emergency housing and financial assistance isn't adequately funded, women will never be able to stay away from violent or coercive relationships. From here, the cycle continues. On average, it takes women 7 attempts to leave. I've learned a lot about this issue by working with an incredible person, Kate Sinclair, from an incredible local provider, the Northern Centre. They run a program called Safety, or SAFET, to help women who get away, stay away. They fund this program almost on their own, which is not sustainable given the ever-increasing demand. They need to be at the table. Before the last election, I was able to secure a $600,000 funding commitment for Safety. However, this wasn't matched by the now government, something that I'm eager to work with them on. With $925 million recently put on the table by the federal government and the New South Wales government now releasing its own funding package, my office is writing to the responsible ministers urging them to fully fund the Northern Centre's Safety program. Ryde is not immune to these challenges, and in an area where our multicultural diversity requires a culturally sensitive, trauma-informed response to DV, services like the Northern Centre are needed now more than ever before. The federal government estimates that gender-based violence costs Australia $26 billion a year, and gendered financial abuse costs approximately $10.9 billion a year. While the funding announcements by the federal government and state government is progress, there is still a long way to go to help women escape the cycle of abuse. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate, and while we have a wonderful community in Ryde, we're not immune either. If you require assistance, support is available from groups like 1800RESPECT, the Northern Centre, Men's Referral Service and Lifeline. Events of recent weeks shouldn't have been the catalyst for action, but action now is necessary to do justice to the most egregious of tears in our social fabric.
I think the